Don't California my Texas is a phrase that you might see on bumper stickers and t-shirts, and here, especially in the Austin area, it is a good indicator of the unique political environment that we have. And that's the first thing on my list of things you might find out that you regret about moving here to the Austin, Texas area. And that's whether you want a California, Texas, or you want to keep Texas how it is, or if you're somewhere in between. Because really here in the Austin here area is where you really have that colliding. You know, Austin has kind of been to some extent California, if you want to put it that way. And, you know, really it's been unique in Texas for a long time. Austin has long been known as the blueberry in that deep red tomato soup that does make up most of Texas. But even in the heart of that blueberry, you're going to find people who love everything about Texas or have a lot less Texan views, I guess if we want to call it that, than maybe their counterparts out in other cities or rural parts of the state. For example, you might find a lot of people who share a lot of common liberal beliefs while also heavily supporting the Second Amendment and being very much in favor of lower taxes anywhere they can be lowered. At the same time, you'll find plenty of people here who have generally what you think of as more conservative beliefs while also being in support of universal health care and legalizing recreational marijuana. And also, a lot of times, they're the same person because, again, it's just all part of the mix that we have here. Now, obviously, as you go out from the city center, you get into the suburbs like Cedar Park, or especially if you get up to Liberty Hill or Georgetown, you kind of start to see that it becomes more and more of that stereotypical Texas viewpoint where you're getting more red than it is in that city center. So I like to say there's really something for everybody, but you're going to be close, you're going to be neighbors, but I think that's, you know, kind of just part of the appeal in a way. But if it's not for you, then it's just not for you, and that's why it could be something that you might regret. But something that you won't regret is taking a second to take down this phone number. If y'all are, look, if these don't turn you off from it, you're still wanting to move here to the Austin area, that is what we're here for. We've got the team in place to help you find your new home here in the Austin area. So take down that phone number. You can call, text. You can even do it old school with that email at the bottom. Whatever y'all got to do to get in touch with us, we got the team here to help you out. But something that we cannot really help you out with if you do move here, and that is the weather. And look, I know the title of this said surprising, so you're thinking, okay, we know it's hot in the summer. We've seen that everywhere else that we looked. It's the number one thing that just about anybody says, and that's why I made it number 2. But there are some things about the weather that you probably aren't really thinking about, because it's not just that summer heat that you're going to have to deal with when you get here to the Austin area. And yes, it does get pretty hot in the summer. There's a couple months out of the year where it can get into triple digits pretty much the entire time, and that's going to come with a little bit more humidity than you might be used to if you're coming from out west. But that's not the only thing to be concerned of. Now, I will say for the rest of the year, you know, 8, 9, 10 months out of the year, it can be generally pretty pleasant and pretty mild. It doesn't get that cold for long periods of time in the winter. Falls and spring are typically great when it comes to temperatures, but there are other weather phenomena to be concerned about. As you may have seen recently in the last few years, we've had some pretty crazy winter storms here as well. You know, for one of the only times I've ever seen it be on the ground for just 4, 5, 6 days at a time, you know, that happened. They had the whole power grid issue, which is a whole other thing to point out how we're just really not prepared here for winter weather like they might be in some more northern cities. So if you're coming from those, the city kind of moves and goes on as normal when you get a lot of snowfall. That's not the case down here. It's going to shut down pretty much everything with just a little bit. And unfortunately, we found out sometimes that includes the power grid. Now, supposedly and hopefully, they've done things since then to keep that from happening again. But it just goes to show how unprepared we are here to deal with that winter weather. And while it doesn't get that extreme very often, we do have those cold snaps. You do see some snow and ice occasionally here, you know, every other year or so. And we have those hot summers every year. So it's something to think about if you're coming from an area where the climate is just going to be a lot different. You're going to have to acclimate. Now, another thing that you're going to have to get used to when you go outside is all the wildlife and bugs that you're going to see here. And this time of year, especially as we're going into the colder months for sure, one thing that's probably the biggest one to watch out for are deer around the area. And, you know, you might think if I live in the city, I really won't see that. But Austin does do a pretty good job of keeping those green belts maintained throughout, you know, some of those residential parts of the city. So it's very likely you'll see a lot of these anywhere you are. Matter of fact, and like I say, as you get out into the suburbs, even more so. I was up in Georgetown recently, which is a smaller city, but it's still a pretty good sized suburb of Austin. And I'm driving through, and you know, there's deer in people's yards, deer just laying down in people's yards. And so you'll see these pretty much wherever you go. But we have other things as well. Obviously, we're in Texas, y'all. We're right here on the border, kind of on the edge of the hill country. So snakes, scorpions, even, and I haven't seen one here personally myself in the Austin area, but tarantulas. They're here with a lot of other spiders, all your wasps and bees, that kind of thing. They're all around here. But I will say the most annoying of all the bugs, at least, has got to be all the mosquitoes here. They can get pretty bad. I know this last summer we were out, we were actually at a playground with my nephew in kind of the north central Austin area there, and we were fine. There were no mosquitoes around, and then we walked over this area where they had some chickens by a school, and my legs just got lit up. I don't know if you're like me, if you got O-type blood. I don't know. I think that's what it is. But these mosquitoes, they find me, they love me, and we kind of got in the wrong spot there, and I probably looked down and had 15 or 20 on my legs. But you're going to have to remember that bug spray when you go outside. Another thing to think of, whether you go outside or not, is the next thing on my list, and that is allergies here in the area. And I have people tell me, you know, wherever they're coming from, they didn't really have allergies that bad, and then they get here and they do. Me personally, I'm taking some Zyrtec every day, just about through most of the spring and most of the fall. It just is what it is. And then you also have cedar fever here, which really hits some people hard. That one doesn't get me surprisingly as bad for some reason, but I gotta tell you, most of the spring and most of the fall, I'm popping a Zyrtec every single day, just to kind of stay functional, because I mean, I'm getting itchy here. Even though I've had my Zyrtec, I'm getting itchy here on that. But for the cedar fever is a whole nother thing. They sell specialized drops just for that. So just be prepared. If you're somebody who's prone to allergies, it's something to definitely be aware of here, and kind of just know you're going to need something to deal with that. And even if you're not somebody who has to deal with allergies wherever you are, it may be something that creeps up on you when you get here to the Austin area. Now, it's true that you can't avoid a lot of those potential, mostly outdoor regrets that you might have most of the time just by staying inside, but you're going to want to go outside at some point. And I happen to think that the area here around Austin is a beautiful area. You've got some beautiful rivers and lakes, the hill country. I mean, it's just drive out through there when you get here. It's amazing. I love it. It's one of my favorite things about being here in the Austin area. But another regret here you might have once you get here and realize that, as great as that may be, if you're used to living minutes from the beach or minutes from the mountains, or apparently in some places you can be minutes from both, I hate to tell you that's not the case here in Austin. You're pretty much going to have to take a flight to get to some real mountains, or about a 7 or 8 hour drive to get out to Big Bend would be the closest in the state here, where you can really get into some legitimate, really high up mountains. And you're still several hours, about 3 to 4 hours, depending on where you go on the beach. Austin may not be sitting on a beach, but where I'm at right now, this is the Padre Island National Seashore. I'm only about 3.5 hours straight down south, and there's other beaches up the way too you can get to. I like these right down here around Corpus Christi because you can drive right out, park here on the beach. Honestly, the convenience factor of this kind of beach makes it, to me, just about my favorite beaches. But while it might not be exactly what you're used to, I still think we have some beautiful scenery around here, and it may not be a white sandy beach, but we do have some great lakes, rivers, streams, swimming holes here, and you're actually going to really like all the water that we have around the area, especially here in the summer. When you're dealing with that summer heat, it's going to be nice to go jump in some cool water, especially like the really crisp cool water that you can get down there at Barton Springs or the Deep Eddy Pool. Those are spring-fed and natural pools that you can get in down there. But they're going to highlight another regret you might have, you might realize when you get here to Austin, and that is how crowded it is getting just about everywhere. Now, a lot of people were talking about traffic, and so traffic is definitely part of this. You'll notice that on those roadways, especially at certain times of the day, and those certain times are getting, bigger and bigger. Now it's getting to be where at 2 or 3 o'clock, the roadways in the afternoon are kind of starting to get jammed up, and that's especially on the I-35 corridor, and also on the Mopac side. So you've got, look at the map video. I did have a video talking about all the roadways, so look at that. But you can get some spots where it does get pretty jammed up with traffic, but there's also the swimming holes that are going to get packed up. You got to do reservations at a lot of places now just to get into them, and go into a restaurant. You want to go get a table. Well, get there a little early, because it's probably going to be a 30-45 minute, maybe an hour plus wait. And that's just a common occurrence. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of that just about everywhere you go. Now, if you're somebody who'd prefer to rely on public transportation to help you get to all those places, unfortunately, I got some bad news for you. This might be another regret that you would have to deal with, because most people here are going to have a car just to kind of get around on a daily basis. And we do have some public transportation. We have a pretty good bus network, but we really don't have any kind of a rail or subway system or anything like that that you might be used to in New York or LA, or maybe Chicago. It's just not like that here. Most people are going to be driving in cars to get just about everywhere they need to go. Now, I will say they're making a lot of efforts to expand that one rail line that we do have, but that whole process has hit a ton of roadblocks and hasn't really seen a whole lot of progress, which is surprising given the high property taxes that we have here in the entire state of Texas, but especially here in the Austin area. It's the next thing on the list, and it can get over 3% of your property value on your annual property taxes. And if you're lucky, if you're on the low end, you might get down under 2% to maybe 1.8 or 1.9, but that's about as good as it's going to get, at least as it stands today. There are some changes that are being voted on. Matter of fact, by the time that most people see this video, it'll all already have been voted on here in November of 2023. And I detailed those changes and kind of how property taxes work in another video up there. But even with those changes and the property taxes coming down a little bit, we're still going to be on the higher side compared to a lot of other states. And that hurts even more now with all of the property value appreciation that we've seen over the last few years here in the Austin area. You know, you used to be able to find a nice house in the downtown Austin area for $300,000, maybe $350,000. Now you got to go far out into the suburbs to find that. If you want to get something under $300,000, I don't think you're going to find it within about 45 minutes of downtown. But even though Austin isn't as affordable as it once was, growth is still happening here. We're still one of the fastest growing metro areas in the entire country. And with all that growth comes a lot of change. And that change is happening at a pretty rapid pace. So if you're somebody who likes things to slow down a little bit, you want to get used to it, have it be that way for a little while, you might regret coming here because of that. Because, I mean, I'm telling you, when you go downtown this week and you go downtown next week or next month, there might be a whole new building down there that wasn't even started for. At least that's what it seems like. It seems like that's how fast it's changing. And it's really like that over the entire metro area. New developments, commercial developments, residential developments, master plan communities, all kinds of stuff. It's popping up all over the place all the time with all these new companies coming here, bringing tons of people, tons of jobs, and tons of money to the area. And all that investment just really just kind of grows more and more on top of it. And so, yeah, if you like the slow pace, if you want things to slow down and be the same for a while, you might not like Austin. But the biggest regret you'll probably have if you do move here to Austin is that you didn't do it sooner. Because obviously, I mean, you could have bought a house 2 or 3 years ago and took advantage of all that appreciation, and you could have been enjoying all the great things about living here in the Austin area. I talk about a lot of those things actually in the video that I'll put up right there. So check that one out if you really are thinking about moving here, and I'll see you there. All right, well, if all those reasons didn't turn you away and you're still thinking about making that move here to the Austin area, I'll give it to you again. There's the number. We got the team in place to help you make that move. We can make it as simple and easy for you as possible. So hit us up, whatever it takes, get in touch with us. And thank y'all for watching.